strippers, gambling, booze, and a whole bunch of cash. Wait, where does the math fit in? Howdy, I'm Jeff Goldsmith, Senior Editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, and it's my absolute honor to have with us producer Dana Brunetti, co-writers Peter Steinfeld and Allan Loeb to discuss their new film, 21, which is, of course, based on the best-selling book, Bringing Down the House, the inside story of 6 MIT students who took Vegas for millions by Ben Mesrick. Remember, if you dig these podcasts, you'll love every single issue of Creative Screenwriting Magazine, and of course, you could find it on newsstands in Barnes & Noble and Borders bookshops and just regular newsstands in the United States, Canada, and Western Europe. If you're looking to find out what's in our current issue, just go to www.creativescreenwriting.com to look up all the details. But now, without further ado, let's jump right onto the stage of our sold-out screening of 21, right as I introduced our guests.
I'm Jeff Goldsmith, Senior Editor of Creative Screenwriting Magazine. It's my absolute honor to introduce the creative team. First up, the producer of this fine film, Dana Brunetti. Of course, screenwriter Peter Steinfeld. And last but not least, screenwriter Allan Loeb. And as is our tradition for each of you guys, the latest issue of Creative Screenwriting Magazine, you are page 70. We always start with breaking in stories as I sit down here. Dana Brunetti, who in the hell are you? Who is this guy? To my knowledge, you were actually in the Coast Guard. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, I served 4 years in the United States Coast Guard, and then did a short stint on Wall Street, and then in a tech company, and then how I ended up in this business, I became on a lark, basically. It was supposed to be for 3 months, became Kevin Spacey's assistant, and we've now been working together for almost 12 years.
Slow down. So wait a minute.
You asked me what our breaking in story is.
That's a big leap of faith, though. You went from Wall Street to being Spacey's assistant. What was that decision like to leave and say,
No, it wasn't Wall Street. I went from Wall Street to this startup company. It was this mobile phone company, and it was taking off and doing really well. And Kevin asked me to come to London to be his assistant for 3 months because he had another assistant that he had to keep here in L.A., and he was doing a play, The Iceman Coming, at the Almeida Theatre in Islington in London. And so it was kind of a joke at first, and I'm like, actually, it'd be kind of cool to go fucking be an assistant for 3 months. You go get coffee, you get 2. You go take your dry cleaning, you take their dry cleaning. It's actually a pretty easy job, and it's a lot of fun.
You're good at dry cleaning.
Yeah, and fetching and gophering and shit. Can I say that here? That's
yes.
All right.
Say shit as much as you want.
Fucking A. So I like this. I was going to get out of control now. So I went and did that, and it was supposed to be for 3 months. The play did really well. I got transferred to the Old Vic. That's where he fell in love with the Old Vic, where he now basically lives. And so I ended up being there for a year. And the reason I did it, though, is I looked at this guy that I was working for, and when I started with the company, it's this really cool Soho loft, and it was before a startup was a startup, and it was fun. And then one day we came in, and there was cubicles all down through it. And then one evening, like 8 o'clock at night, and I was in the office, and I did what they call prairie dogging, when you look up over the cubicles. And I saw my boss.
Is that a Coast Guard term or a?
No, I think it's an office term.
Oh, okay,
I wouldn't know anything about that these days, though. So I look up and I see my boss back in the corner stressing and like trying to make his numbers and quotas and all this shit. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be that guy when I'm 40 years old. And so I took off and went to London for what was supposed to be 3 months.
And that was around the time that Spacey was in American Beauty. Is that right, or is it?
No, that was 2 years prior to that.
2 years prior to that. We've all seen Swimming with Sharks. We know that Spaceman can be a tough man on screen. What was it like for you to be his assistant? I mean, there's a lot of our podcast listeners that some of which are development assistants.
10 times worse. It's you guys really should feel bad for me. No, he's a great guy. He's my best friend. He's tough, but I mean, I don't think you make it in this business without being a little bit tough. He's not crazy like Swimming with the Sharks, but yeah, I mean, he's an easygoing guy, and as long as you do your job, and as his assistant, and you don't fuck up, then you don't have anything to worry about. And then as long as you are making something of yourself, he'll support you.
You also went to film school at NYU, is that right?
Yeah, just briefly.
Are you
That's all I needed.
Are you a dropout? I'm
a dropout.
Wow, you look like a dropout.
Look who's talking. Fucking Grizzly Adams over here.
Absolutely
You're
correct.
like you fucking are panhandling out on Sunset when you're leaving here.
It's the look, just so you know. Just so you know, in case there's any debate, the look is known as film hobo. That's the look I go for.
Okay, I got it.
I met you first in '03, and we're going to get to you guys in 1 second. This is the last thing because it's kind of important. I met you first in '03, a couple years after I started writing for creative screenwriting. You had just launched Trigger Street as a .com, basically.
Right.
Talk about what Trigger Street is, because I think it's something a lot of the podcast listeners, we've talked about it before, would dig.
Yeah, it started for me working as Kevin's assistant and his frustration with our production company starting at the time. And if he's in a coffee shop and somebody comes up to him and tries to give him a script, he can't take it because of the litigious society that we live in. And if he farts anything like it in the future, he can be sued for it. Sorry, that's an analogy I could come up with. This was, I saw something online, let me back up for a second. And he felt that kind of ironic that it was first-time filmmakers and screenwriters that were really responsible for his career and really kicking off. I mean, Sam Mendes, the first film he made was American Beauty. Not that he's a first-time director, but still.
Brian Singer,
Chris McCory. And a lot of people, they were all first-timers that gave him his big breaks, and so he found it kind of ironic and frustrating. So I'd seen that one of the first legal cases that online documents that you fill out held up in court. So what we used to have to do is you had to fill out what the hell they called? People send them
release forms.
Yeah, for submissions. And so we basically, well, can't we just put those online? And so that was the original catalyst. And then as we started this site, we realized it's going to grow a lot bigger, and it took off much bigger than what we ever anticipated. So we grew it out to basically be a platform for undiscovered talent, to get feedback and get exposure and hopefully lead to some type of opportunity. So if a struggling person or just somebody that's interested in screenwriting is out in Iowa and doesn't know somebody in Hollywood or doesn't know the first thing about screenwriting or filmmaking, they can go on the site and download other people's work, review it, critique it, and then start to contribute their own work. And a lot of people have learned the entire craft from our site and actually have now, their screenplays are going out and getting optioned.
Coppola was doing that with his Zoetrope site for a while.
It still is.
Yeah, and you guys, every month, it's a best short film and it's a best screenplay.
No.
Or kind of most votes, like highest.
It's not necessarily votes. It's a very complicated critiquing process to avoid manipulation. And one thing I have learned, if there's anything that you put on the web that can be manipulated, they will figure it out no matter how complicated you make it. So we have a pretty intense system to prevent that. But for the screenplay side, we do a screenplay of the month every month, and it basically gets coverage from Scriptshark, and they determine our screenplay of the month from 3 nominees, and then they're just featured on the site. We don't give anything. It's not an option. It's not Project Greenlight. It's nothing like that. It's all about, it's what you make of it. And then for the short film side, we just do an online short film festival every, as we can get submissions in enough to do a proper festival.
It's peer-to-peer review.
Total peer-to-peer
Yeah, and
review.
one of the interesting things, just before we move on, because I hear there's some screenwriters here,
Really?
you guys also got Budweiser to fund all this,
Yeah.
which even as .coms were having trouble, Budweiser's always Budweiser, and I'm hoping there's some in your trunk for me.
Not tonight. I thought there would be some up here, but you jipped me with the fucking
but I mean,
guys
like,
who are.
and they're still the sponsor, right? They're still the main sponsor?
Yeah, so that's really what gave us the ability to blow the site out and make it much bigger than what it was. And when we originally came to it, they came to them, I'm not a dummy, they bought into Kevin Spacey and not this website that I was putting together. And we kind of came into this .com wasteland when we first launched, and we went to Comdex at the time when it existed to launch the site, and all the reporters' questions were like, well, how do you plan on making money? And we're like, we don't. And there was no follow-up question to that. And this was all before Web 2.0. And actually, TriggerStreet.com is credited as one of the first social networks online. And we didn't know we were doing that at the time. It was just we were building an online community. And so 3 years after that deal ran up with them, we went back down, and they now had a new media department. And we met with them. They're like, we've had this for 3 years, and we haven't done something with it. And so they immediately signed back up and renewed for another 5 years with us, and have been very supportive of the site and the community that it draws.
Cool. Peter, talk about your breaking in story. I mean, people love to hear how screenwriters get their first agent, how their first film was made. To my knowledge, Drowning Mona really put you on the map.
Yeah, Drowning Mona. Actually, I started out. Started out in 1993. I was a forklift operator for Shiseido Cosmetics in Oakland, New Jersey. And
I knew I recognized you.
Yeah, it's very glamorous. It was glamour. It was cosmetics. And so in my spare time while I was forklifting, I was screenwriting.
So that's what it's called, forklifting?
Yeah, it was forklifting. Yeah. I was non-union, so there's no picketing. So anyway, I was writing these screenplays, and I had just written what I thought was probably the most genius script ever. It was a script called Deadly Dreidel. And it was a Hanukkah murder mystery, and I had a great tag. The tag was Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, 8 dead in 8 nights. That was it. Yeah, very proud of that work.
That's on Trigger Street.
Very proud of that.
Yeah, you should put that on Trigger Street.
Yeah, exactly. So I packed up Deadly Dreidel and another script I had written called Killing Jeff, and I just thought, you know what, I'm destined for bigger things than forklifting. And I came out to LA. I actually just left my apartment, said goodbye to my family, and I moved out here about 3 days after the Northridge quake. And so 1994, and immediately got a job as a gopher on a Showtime movie, where I became Chaz Palminteri's driver, which was miserable because I was too cheap to buy a Thomas guide. So I was lost. I spent most of the time lost. He was showing up on set like way too late. And then eventually I was taking him to the airport. It was our last day. I took him to the airport, and we're pulling up to the airport, and he says to me, kid, you're the worst fucking driver I've ever had in my entire life. I hope to God you want to do something else with your life. And I said, well, yeah, I wrote this Hanukkah, murder mystery, and I'm proud of it, and I wrote this other thing about landscapers trying to kill each other, and he said, okay, here's my writing advice to you. My writing advice to you is write something that people might want to see. And so I said, okay, like what? And he said, I don't know, what's the oldest story in the book? And I said, the oldest story in the book is the Evil Twin movie. And he said, great, write the Evil Twin movie. And I said, I don't want to write the Evil Twin movie. And he said, just do it as an exercise, write it, get it under your belt. It's got to be better than what you've written. And he said, here's my card. He wrote his phone number on the back, and he gave me the card, and he left. And so I was like, cool. A week later, I'm out of a job. I'd been in LA for about 5 weeks. Movie ends, out of a job. I go home. I don't know anybody. I'm sitting in my apartment in Santa Monica, and I'm like, I'm going to take Chaz's advice. I'm going to write the Evil Twin movie. So I decide, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I'm going to write 15 pages a day. And if I write 15 pages a day, I will be done in 7 days. And I had no social life, so I thought, no loss. So I did. I write a 105-page script in 7 days. Following Monday comes, I get a job at a little company up in West Hollywood. I meet them. They say, you're going to be the PA. What have you done? I said, I just wrote the script. I finished it on Saturday. And they said, a friend this guy I met said, I'd love to read it. I bring it in Tuesday. He reads it Tuesday night. He comes in Wednesday, and he says, it's kind of a cool script. Can I show it to a friend of mine who's a producer? I said, sure. He shows it to his friend who's a producer Wednesday night. Thursday, the producer calls me up and goes, this is a really weird Evil Twin script. I'm kind of digging this. Can I show it to my agent at ICM? And I said, sure. Friday, this is the God's honest truth, I swear to God. Friday, the agent from ICM called me up and said, it's a weird Evil Twin script, and I kind of like it, and can I hit pocket you and go out with it to some people I know over the weekend? And I said, sure. And so Monday, I sold it to ABC. And so, and I'd been out in LA for about 6 weeks, and didn't quit my day job. But basically, that's how I got my break. It was an ABC. It was a Jack Wagner tour de force Evil Twin movie, and
what was it called?
It was called Echo.
Echo. I like it.
Isn't that how everybody gets to LA?
Yeah.
Sells a script for a week.
7 days, write a script. By Friday, you'll be represented.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Sell it on Monday.
That was it.
I suggest to block out.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know that happens all the time.
In the magazine,
anyway, yeah.
we always suggest to block out 3 weeks at a time rather than 2 weeks.
No, 7 days. 7 days
To
is
write it
plenty.
and sell it? Or, all right.
7 days is plenty.
Now,
Great.
you've done a lot of big studio assignments, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because you've come in and make sequels to popular movies, like Analyze That and Be Cool.
weird, yeah.
Talk about, just for a second before we get to Allan, just the pressure that must exist to come in on a sequel of an already popular project is got to be kind of crazy.
It's really weird. It's the only job I've ever known of, like, where you start on day one and you're instantly hated by everybody online. So it's just like everybody's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe," it's like you're going to ruin it, and so it's a lot of pressure. But on the plus side, what's really great is getting to sort of channel, these great characters that already existed, and you already know who's going to be in your movie. So when you start writing, you're like, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to be writing for John Travolta. I'm going to be writing Chili Palmer. And so you go, I know how that sounds. I know how he walks. I know how he talks. And so you immediately kind of get into that mode. Scarier to deal with somebody like Elmore Leonard, but basically, it's an odd thing. I never thought that would happen in a million years. But
Were there any amazing lessons you learned just through assignments like that? Just something that if you did a third one, you'd keep in mind?
yeah, you know what? The lesson learned is don't do the third one. So that's sort of no, actually, the lesson I learned is just kind of trust yourself, trust your instincts, because what happens is there's so many people involved with the success of the first movie, and all of those people want you to listen to exactly how they think it should be.
Even though probably on the first movie they weren't telling the writer exactly how it should be. Yeah.
Right, and they sort of weren't really involved, but they're going to tell you anyway. And so there's a lot of people who are going to tell you, like, no. But basically, so you sort of have to trust, because, like, I remember when I was doing Analyze That, there was a sequence where I just thought it'd be really funny if De Niro was in prison and he had to figure out a way to get out of prison, and I thought it'd be really funny just to see him break into, like, a whole slew of West Side Story songs. Just because it's something you would never see De Niro do. I didn't think that he would do it, but I was like, I want to do that. And so everybody came back, all the producers, everybody came back, and they just said, and the studio came back, and they just said, you're out of your mind, he'll never do it, and he's not even signed on to this movie anyway, and so this will, like, alienate him. And I was just like, I don't know, I got a good feeling about the West Side Story thing. And so I kind of forced the issue, and they didn't want to give it to him. Somebody snuck him a copy with the West Side Story stuff in. He read it. That was the clincher. That was the thing that he loved so much that he went, oh, he's going to get to do song and dance in the movie, and he wants to do the movie now. So you just kind of go with your instincts, trust your instincts with it.
I can only hope and pray that he's in Deadly Dreidel next. So I'm hoping you're going to get me that
Yes.
script. Allan, I think you sold a script called Second Time Around to DreamWorks in 97?
1997, yeah.
Okay, so give us the pitch on what that was in your breaking in story.
Well, I came out here in 92, 93, right around then. I was in Chicago, and it was cold. And I had a friend out here writing scripts telling me that, you write these scripts out here, and then you sell them for a lot of money, and girls have sex with you, and it's great, all of which is false. But then, he would send me his scripts, and they were god-awful, and I would, give him notes or whatever at the time, and then he started saying, well, can you just do some of the dialogue? And so I started to rewrite his stuff, and then I ended up just coming out here in 93. Then I got a job driving Joe Mantegna around. Kidding.
That would have been so awesome.
Oh, my God.
But no, and so I struggled for like 4 years, wrote a lot of scripts that didn't sell, a lot of stepping stone scripts, and then sold the second time around to DreamWorks. That was the first sale. It was a pitch we sold to DreamWorks when they were pretty brand new then.
To my knowledge, you then got some assignments and some stuff like that after that, and around 2004, you were almost kind of ready to throw in the towel. Is that true?
Yeah.
Talk about what was going on and what changed it for you.
I was, frustrated. Anything I had sold was pretty much guild minimum and then replaced pretty much right away and then turn around pretty much after that. So it was really the frustrating road, and my mother was really just, horrified and wanted me to get into a different business, and I was pretty much there with her. But then I went to New York to write a script. That was kind of my last script, my like Hail Mary script, and I didn't have an agent at the time. I had gotten dropped by my agent when I was writing that, or when I started writing that. So I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a car.
Just out of curiosity, why they decided to drop you? Was it just they decided you weren't enough of an earner?
Yeah, I wasn't selling anything, and we didn't have a great relationship. And I had a writing partner when I signed with him. I'm not going to give the agent's name, but Todd Hoffman. But but I had a partner, and then
which agency?
He's at ICM now.
Okay.
He's a friend of mine. I like Todd a lot, actually. But he's a nice guy. He's a good guy.
That's what happened to me at ICM as well. I got dropped by ICM.
He was a broker at the time, but yeah, I mean, agent. But I had a partner, and the partner stopped writing, and so then he was like, I kind of signed you because you're partner, not you, and so. But anyways, I had no agent, I had no car, I had no hope, I had no money, so I wrote this one script, and in New York, that was kind of it for me, and that was the one that signed me at CAA. And
that was called The Only Living Boy?
Only Living Boy in New York, yeah.
Give us the pitch on what that was.
It was a graduate type of story. It was a coming-of-age story. It's sold to Sony, which is who made this movie. And it was just something that I really wanted to write in New York, so I had kind of held off on writing it until I had enough money to go to New York and like do 3-4 months there and write the movie.
What's the status of it?
Right now, it's leaving Sony. It might be going somewhere else. We have a director attached named Seth Gordon, who did the King of Kong movie.
Great film.
Great movie.
And he just did this Vince Reese thing for Four Christmases. Yeah. And hopefully we're going to cast it and get it going. But it's been a while. It's been 4 years now out there.
In 2007, you had your first film produced, Things We Lost in the Fire. I think Susanna Biers is an amazing director. Talk about that experience, how you came on to that, and what it was like getting produced.
Yeah, I wrote that on spec and sold it to DreamWorks, and then Sam Mendes was actually going to direct it, and then he decided to produce it, and then he hired Suzanne, who her Danish movies are awesome, and she's amazing. And then I worked with her for a while, for like 5 months on script, and then we made the movie in Vancouver last fall, 2 falls ago in 2006, and in April. I don't even remember anymore. But anyways. She's a great filmmaker, and she's fun to work with. She's a very funny lady too.
What was the biggest lesson that you learned while working on it, having your first film produced?
I think the lesson I learned from that experience, and also throughout everything, is you can't be precious at all ever, because it's not gonna work out. So everything's up for debate, and you're going to have to kill a lot of babies, and let it go early.
That's one thing I'll give to Allan. He is not precious with his babies in script meetings. He would be like, okay, fine, take on. It was just like, all right, well, and then come up with another brilliant
Well,
idea.
the theory behind it is it's not the material, it's the writer. So the material is always, you can always get rid of whatever you've written. If you're the writer, you're going to replace it with something hopefully just as good, if not better.
Yes, I completely agree. Dana, your producers aren't supposed to ever read anything, but you accidentally did a few years back a Wired article, and that's kind of what started this project. I didn't even know you could read, but please tell us about that special night.
The Hooked on Phonics it works well. It wasn't a night; it was a day, and actually, you didn't do all your research because I found it earlier than that. When I was still working as Kevin's assistant. And we were going to Vegas to work on another movie, and it was with Helen Hunt, and she actually found out it was going to be my first time going to Vegas. And she was like, you've never been to Vegas? I'm going to experience it through your eyes. And she taught me how to play blackjack, and then she had a system. It was just a progressive system. And I'm like, what's with this whole system? And she's like, oh, that's how you do it, and it worked pretty well, but it was just, mostly luck and just progressive. But doing that, I found out that there were actually, the game was beatable, and that there were these other systems. And I got a bit addicted to blackjack. And so I started reading about it and getting books, Beat the House and Edward Thorpe's Beat the Dealer, and all these crazy books that I had. And there are all these crazy mathematical systems that I could never get my head around. And a mutual friend of Kevin and mine, went to dinner with some MIT alumni guy, and he was like, hey, there's these teams that used to go to Vegas when I was going to MIT, and they perfected the art of card counting and won thousands of dollars. And so, and they were like bankrolled by other alum, and it was the systems. I was just like, that's a great idea for a movie. And now I was still Kevin's assistant at the time, and I told Kevin about it, and he's like, "Oh, write something about it." And so I kind of wrote this half-ass treatment. I'm not a writer, and I can barely read, according to you. And it kind of fell between the cracks, as things do. And then I launched TriggerStreet.com, and I was living in New York. And I walked every morning from my apartment in Tribeca to my office in Tribeca, and walking by a newsstand one day, I saw on the cover of Wired magazine, it said the inside story of 6 MIT students that took Vegas for millions. And I was like, holy fuck, that's the idea that I wanted to make into a movie. So I called Kevin in London. I'm like, hey, remember that story about the MIT card counters, the blackjack team? So he's like, yeah, kind of. I'm like, well, there's an article in Wired magazine. And now I bought the magazine. I haven't even opened it and read it or anything yet. And I'm walking up the street talking to him, still heading to the office. And he's like, well, what's your plan? I'm like, well, I want to option the article or figure out how to do something with it. He's like, all right, go for it. And I walked into the office, threw the magazine down on another guy I was working with on his desk, sat down at my desk and said, tell me who wrote that article. And he said, he looked and flipped through and was like, Ben.
That was right, you couldn't read.
So you got me. There's one coming back your way. Don't worry, volley back and forth.
I'm so nervous.
So he told me Ben Mesrick, and so I Googled Ben Mesrick. This is before people Googled anybody. And I found a Ben Mesrick with a 617 area code. And so I cold called him and said, hey, my name's Dana Brunetti. I work with Kevin Spacey. Interested in the article that you wrote in Wired magazine. Give me a call back. He then got the message and called his mother and said, I think Kevin Spacey's trying to get a hold of me. And his mother's like, it's just, the kids at MIT, they're playing a prank on you. And so he Googled me and then realized I was who I said I was. And so then he called me back, and a couple of days later we got him out to L.A. And then I found out about the book talking to him, and he still had the film rights, so we snagged the film rights and then set it up at MGM. Everybody, and here's the story too. I don't even know if you guys know this. Everybody in town passed on this book.
Really? That I did not know.
Everyone passed. And then MGM, we finally kind of, how you finagle people into buying something. They then bought it, but then we're like, fuck, they were the hardest hit casino in the book. They were hit for $450,000 in one night. And this was the time when the Grand and MGM, the studio, were one and the same. And we're like, they're fucking buying it to make it go away. And so we then confirmed that, all right, they did indeed plan on making it. And then so it got set up there, and then that's when Peter came on for the first adaptation. Or for the adaptation. Not the first, not that there was more than one.
So when you did that, I mean, like, people always have the follow the money type of questions. After MGM came on, was it MGM that was paying Peter to write it, or was it Trigger Street that was paying for that first draft?
No, Trigger Street's not. We don't have a first look deal. We don't have a fund or anything. It's all it's all us. We keep our lights on. So what we normally do with projects is we attach to them, use our credibility that we have, and then take them out, and then we come with the package. So the studio ends up footing the bill.
Peter, talk about your coming on to this project. What was your knowledge about the book, about the Wired magazine article, etc.?
I knew nothing about the Wired magazine article. I don't read. And so actually what happens is MGM, I just finished doing a movie for MGM that was an adaptation, and they called me up and they just said, we want to send a book over to you and see if you're interested in this. And actually I had just finished this long project, and I really sort of wanted to take a break, but the book showed up at my door. I opened it up, and literally within like an hour later, I'd finished reading this book, and I just flipped out over it, and I loved it. And just a couple days later, I was over at MGM, and I was sitting down with Dana and Elizabeth Cantillon, who's now a Sony exec, who really kind of shepherded the project through for the studio, and I flipped out. I just thought, this is a great, great story. And I had known that people had passed on it. I couldn't believe that they'd passed on it, because I just thought this was like, stranger than fiction. It was just such a great story. And so they hired me. And the weird part was, it was actually only my second adaptation I'd ever done. And so I opened up the book, and I was like, okay, this is going to be great, and I'm really excited. And I hit page 1, and I went, oh my God. It took me 7 years to get through college, and I'm in so far over my head right now. And these guys are geniuses, and I'm a borderline idiot. So I called the studio and I said, I need to go to Boston. I need to go to MIT, and and meet these people and talk to them and see what the deal is, and really sort of kind of humanize it, personalize it, experience what they experienced. And also I realized just in just reading the book for the first time, cinematically, it was going to be a tough story to tell just because the book takes place over the course of several years. And so I just thought cinematically it would be more interesting to just sort of set it all within the course of 1 year and kind of up the stakes. And so what really fascinated me when I went to Boston and I met these guys, and I spent like a week with them, was just the thing that really resonated for me was just they kept talking about what it was like when they were 21. When they were seniors at MIT, and they were spending weekends in Vegas, and then like by Monday morning they were sitting in a classroom, and they were just, being normal kids, normal geniuses. And so, and I just thought that's amazing. To me, that was like, okay, that's the movie. That's the movie we need to tell.
You talked a second ago about knowing the characters that you were writing for because the actors. Did you know that Spaceman was going to be in it as the teacher?
No, actually, you know what? He wasn't going to be in it. In fact, the first thing that I remember Dana and I, one of the first things we talked about is that Kevin had some interest in possibly being in the movie, but was really much more interested in just being attached as the producer. And
yeah, I mean, that's just something that we don't... Kevin doesn't attach to anything until he sees the script with a project that we're doing, so he couldn't attach to it until he saw what the final...
If only other actors did that. Sorry, so go on.
No, so what I just had this idea of like, there's a Mickey Rose character in the book who actually is not really employed by MIT, not affiliated with MIT in the book, and I just thought, we really need to bring the story to MIT and have it set firmly in one half MIT, one half Las Vegas. And how great would it be to have Kevin Spacey play this brilliant mathematics professor, who really kind of handpicks these kids and sees these kids, and that's how he figures out who's going to be on this team, and then goes to Vegas with them. And it just was a way to sort of kind of just have it live between the two worlds of Boston and Las Vegas. And then also it gave me an opportunity just to shamelessly write pages of dialogue for Kevin to hopefully get him interested in playing the professor. And I think I kind of went overboard, and it was a little overkill at first.
It was very clear it was written for Kevin.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was just like, it was shameless, totally shameless. But that also helped me, too, in thinking, like, that's who my goal is. I'm going to focus on getting Kevin to play that part.
And how long did you have to write your first draft?
Oh, God, I don't know. I think it was...
Don't say 2 weeks, dude, or I'm going to slap you.
It was, 8 days.
It wasn't
maybe 8
weeks.
days. I took an extra day on this one because I had to go to Boston. So, no, I think I think I had a good 3 months. I think it was a good 3 months to actually do that. And in the meantime, it was going to Boston, and then one of the amazing things was getting to spend time with Jeff Ma and all of these guys in Las Vegas as well, and just having them kind of take me through their whole system and take me through the whole world of it. So that was really cool. But then one of the other great benefits of going to Boston was just in sort of meeting other kind of MIT kids that had nothing to do with the blackjack team, and that's sort of like where the Miles character comes from, because it was just sort of like, well, who is in, Jim Sturgis's world? Who's going to be in this kid's world, and Ben Campbell's world? And so it was important to sort of figure out a couple of people that I got to meet on campus and go, they would be great. They'd be great to sort of populate his world and show his like normal side.
A lot of times on projects, it's just the way the town works. As it's getting close to shooting or to push for the green light, the studio replaces the writer for another draft. I'm sure that was a pleasant experience for you, but talk as we pass the torch over to Allan.
Right.
What that was like, knowing that there was another writer coming in, and Allan, your experience coming onto it.
Wait, I was replaced? No.
Actually, it didn't go the normal way because it did a transition from one studio to the next. And so once it kind of got a new kind of crew on it in the new studio. So it wasn't your typical, all right, he's gone, bring in another guy.
But it's weird. Well, first of all, I think that's one of the things that you just kind of get used to. No, that's not true. I don't think you ever get used to it, but it's one of the things you kind of grow to accept as a screenwriter, kind of as a working screenwriter in Hollywood, is there are times when you're brought on to rewrite other people's projects, and there are times where people are brought on to rewrite your project. And so it's always just kind of a weird thing. In this case, it really kind of, I was on it for a couple of years, actually. In fact, I was on it when Brett Ratner was attached to direct it, and did a bunch of drafts for Brett, and then was on it when Sean Levy came on board, and then, oh God, I think there were probably somewhere about 20, 25 drafts that were done during all that time, and then honestly, and this happens a lot with studios. They just look at the haggard writer, and they go, let's let him go home and see his kids, and so basically, it helps to have a fresh perspective, and that was one of the amazing things. Like when Allan came on board, he just brought new life to it, a new vitality, a new energy, and new ideas, and I think that was really essential for this movie.
Allan, he has
I just
kids,
wanted to speak to the idea of writers getting replaced. It's really the process more than anything else, the writer, meaning I get replaced when I start scripts. When I'm the first writer, I'm probably going to get replaced. It's pitching, it's baseball. I mean, yes, you can throw a complete game. Most of the time, they're going to bring someone in the 7th or 8th inning because your arm is tired, or they think your arm's tired. So it's just who start. If you're the first writer in, you're most likely going to be replaced, no matter who you are.
And by the way, it happens to everybody. I mean, like, nobody is impervious to this. In fact, I remember several years ago, Universal and Imagine sent me a script, and they said, this is a Go movie, and we're making this movie with George Clooney and Catherine Zeta-Jones, and we're really excited, and you're going to jump on board, and you're going to rewrite it. And I was like, oh, this is great. That sounds really exciting. And they sent me the script, and I cracked it open, and it said, written by Joel and Ethan Coen. And I was like, there's no fucking way I'm rewriting Joel and Ethan Coen. I'm sorry. I'm excited about this, but it's not going to happen. But, I mean, I've heard, I know the screenwriter Scott Rosenberg was telling me one time about how he got hired to rewrite William Goldman. And you think it's crazy, but it's the business, and it's the process, like Allan was saying.
It's a process, and sometimes you get a script to rewrite. When a script comes in for a rewrite job, sometimes it's horrible. It's just terrible, and sometimes you love it. I tend to like to do the ones I already love. I mean, because and Peter's I loved. I loved the story, and I loved your draft. I mean, there was so much there to work from, and that's, I think, when the process is best, is when you actually do get a script that's very good, as opposed to something that needs a page one complete thing. But I got onto this, just to answer, I got a call. I'm a compulsive gambler, so I've been in GA for years. I'm not.
I was going to bring that up. I mean, you were a good choice for this because you had the experience in the pits of Las Vegas.
Yeah, I had spent most of my 20s gambling, a little screenwriting, but a lot of gambling, and I got a call. I was in New York. I got a call from a Sony executive who I was close with, who bought The Only Living Boy in New York, and he said, listen, I don't mean to be rude or anything, but I had heard a rumor that you had problems with gambling in the past. And I said, yeah, I'm in GA. I have no shame about this. And he said, would it be weird or uncomfortable or against the rules if you were to look at a gambling project to rewrite? And I said, no, bring it on. I love, I know that world, as well as anybody, so that's how I came into the project. They actually gave me the job because I'm a degenerate. Welcome to Hollywood.
That's true.
Wouldn't be the first time. So what was it like? I mean, did you read the book, or did you what?
Yeah, I read the book, and I read Peter's draft, and I said Peter's draft is definitely the right direction, which is that's a movie. Obviously the book had cinematic qualities to it, but it wasn't a journey of a movie. It's a movie's different than a book. So what you had done was taken it and made it into a movie, and so it was expanding on the movie of it all, not the book.
We're gonna open up to the crowd in a few minutes, but I want to blaze through some different scenes and stuff like that. I thought the opening was really tight because it set up the world really fast. It gave the concept of the code words. It also showed the imminent threat of you could get busted doing this and beaten up pretty bad. Talk about crafting an opening like that, because it was a good way to suck people in before the long setup of his world, his friends, MIT, all that.
Yeah, I mean, that really was just sort of an idea I had about wanting to frame. A lot of it was wanting to frame the movie in a certain way and just sort of kind of bookend the movie and see and to set it up immediately. So you got the sense of the excitement, the thrill, the action, the danger, and also get a sense of like who this guy is, some of the people in his life, and get that sense of like he's probably going to get his ass kicked at any second. But you know what? Let's hold on. Let's back up for a second and let's see how he got to that place and have the movie catch up to itself.
And ironically enough, the opening and the ending were both like To Be or Not to Be all the way through development and even, I think, production for the most part.
There was pages during production, and we actually shot 2 different endings.
We shot 2 different endings.
We're going to talk to that towards the end. His dad is also dead. He's just doing it for the med school. I mean, you're like playing all the right emotional strings to get people captivated. Was there anything you guys tried to do that
we
just
didn't? His
didn't work?
dad, you killed the dad off.
I think I killed the dad. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no,
Alan killed the dad.
No, you had the dad.
Yeah, you had
I
the dad.
had
You
the
had a
dad.
scene with the dad, yeah.
But one thing, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but one of the things that cracked me up when I found out that the dad was dead was that Jeff Ma, who the story is all about, really is about Jeff Ma. When I first got hired, Jeff Ma said to me, you know what, I just recently came out to my parents that this is my life. They did not know that this is my life. So whatever you do in adapting this book, please be good to my parents. And then I found out that the dad was killed, and I was like, "Oops, okay, sorry."
Actually,
Jeff.
on one of your drafts, one of my favorite bits on your draft, and if we would have made this movie when it should have been made years ago, you had this great line when he goes in for tuition assistance or something, and it was just like this woman on the other side was really bitchy, and it's just like, well, you don't understand. I gotta pay my tuition or whatever I gotta pay. And she's like, are you a Red Sox fan? And he's like, yeah. And then she goes, well, you should be used to disappointment.
Yeah, that's right. I wouldn't play now, but right. A couple of years ago, that was right on.
And then when the World Series happened, I was like, good thing we took that out.
That's right.
What about the framing device of him kind of going in there for the grant, for the scholarship?
The grant. No, I had the med school thing. And
You
then I
go
think-
through these things in development,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, okay.
forget
All right,
what
all right.
you
Med school
did
came
and
in and out
what you found.
like 3 or 4 times.
I had the scene with the med school guy where he was. Yeah, I had the scene with the med school guy where he was going for the scholarship, and he didn't know if he was.
Neither one of these are not really the writers. By the way.
No, I know, but what was genius
they didn't
was
show up.
The ending,
You brought it. What was
bringing it the point of
See,
narrative.
this is great. This is great writing tag team because actually I had the opening with the med school thing, and Alan had the ending with the.
Yeah, the point of
him
narrative
telling
on the
a story.
voiceover. The idea that throughout the voiceover in the movie is basically him back in this guy's office at the end saying, you want me to dazzle you, this is my story, and then giving the story that we're seeing on the screen. I took that from the opening, which was Peter had the opening, and then I bookended it with the ending.
No, and that was a great way to go. And usually voiceover could be the death of a film, but actually here it totally worked. It didn't overstay its welcome. It was also the good scenes with him in class, the Vladimir Stubninsky scene. That was a good setup and payoff. Where did that come about? Was it just through mathematical research? Is it even a true story? Or is it
You're
made
talking
up?
about
That's all.
The fact that the student being betrayed by the teacher and
Oh, all right. I thought
Some of the betrayal stuff is really from the book, really, and then all the stuff in the classroom is just like painfully long. A lot of just logic research that was done online. That was just like watching paint dry.
Yeah, some of this stuff, I'll admit this, though. When I get to technical jargon in movies, I make shit up.
Yeah.
And some of it made it in there, by the way.
Some did.
That's
And
good.
actually, the game show host problem that they do at the beginning, it's a common thing they do apparently at MIT. And one of Neil Robertson, who's a good friend of mine, and the team, Jeff Ma and all these guys are all good friends. And we're like, we need a problem to show his genius. And he read a draft of the script, and he actually said, well, hey, there's this thing that we do, and it's basically, they call it we couldn't use it because
The Monty Hall problem.
the Monty Hall problem. We couldn't use it
clear
because
that.
clearances, so we called it the game show problem.
But-
and that came from one of the guys that's friends with the guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
But when his friends get mad at him because the discrete is 16K versus 8K, all made up.
That's awesome.
I was tired. I Googled semiconductors. I took 4 words, put them together, called it a night.
It's got that little game that you shuffle things around, and then whatever lays out, fuck it, use it.
Yeah, next time just throw darts at some words on a dartboard and you might get the same thing. I like the Rain Man scene when, Fisher's kind of on tilt. That was good stuff. It was good dialogue. What was it like constructing that scene, where he's accusing
I
him
think
of
that was
being
mine.
Rain Man?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, counting cards. What's the greatest, counting cards in a way thing that you can remember from any mass media was that scene where Rain Man counts cards and Rain Man, where Dustin Hoffman counts cards. So let's give a throw to that.
Wapner at 5. But so, it's not easy to make a movie. And Dana, you worked with Relativity Media on this for some of the financing. Is that true? Is that false?
That was all Sony.
Was it all Sony?
That was Sony.
Because they're just an interesting company. I mean, they've done a lot of...
They spend a lot. They just
Okay.
invest in a lot of Sony's slate.
Yeah,
all right.
what they're doing with Universal, whatever it is now, I didn't have anything to do with
What
it.
was the budget for the movie?
It was like 30-something, I don't remember, because we had tax incentives from Massachusetts. But it's a studio film. It's not like my little independent films I do where I know to the dollar. This
Right.
is like, whatever.
When it comes to getting our net points, the budget was $750 million.
It will be, yeah. What was it like working with the hotels, Dana? What was that like?
Well, initially we thought, the same as we thought MGM is going to be like, when they bought the book, they're buying it to go away. So then we thought, okay, fuck, well, how are we going to shoot in the casinos? Because this is about beating them. And what we realized, though, in the process when Ben was going and doing book signings in the casinos, is they actually love the book and they love this movie because it makes everyone think that the system is easy. And the system really is easy, but to follow it perfectly, you have to be a brilliant mind. And in actuality, if you make one mistake an hour, you have a worse advantage than if you were just playing basic strategy. So the casinos... Initially, we had some that were open to it and others that weren't. So we got the 4 solid casinos that we needed. We got the Riviera, we got the Hard Rock, Planet Hollywood, and Red Rock. And then as the filming started, they realized this train wasn't stopping. So then the Palms allowed us to do that nightclub scene there, and then then the Wynn opened up and let us go in because we were in town for quite a few weeks doing pre-production and then shooting for 2 or 3 weeks.
And stripper research for that one scene.
Oh, hell yeah. That actually, the strip club we shot in Boston, and we made another club into a strip club. And then the stripper scene, those where they're cashing in the chips, those were that was accurate.
Every one of those strippers vetted, eh? All right.
Spearmint Rhino, and a lot of them came straight from work. That was a 7 o'clock call, and it was a fun morning.
Good stuff. Good stuff. It's always tough to deal with, an antagonist. Here you kind of have 2. You have Fishburne, and then you have Spacey's character towards the end of the movie. What was it like kind of creating a balance between those 2 antagonists? Because, the house, the casinos really aren't the antagonists in this movie.
My take is that Fishburne he's an antagonist, but he's not a villain, where Spacey is a villain. There's a big difference.
Yeah, and actually, I think in the book, Fishburne's character in the book was actually much more of a villain. But, I think it was important that you sort of brought the movie back between Kevin Spacey's character and Jim Sturgis' character and really set up that dynamic.
Got to ask a few tough questions. There's been some talk online, some people complaining that, some of the Asian characters were turned white. What kind of was behind the scenes on those decisions? Out of the team of, 5 initially, then 4? There are 2 Asian.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Well, when we cast it, we went on talent. We cast it. I saw literally hundreds of kids coming in all backgrounds. So we went mainly on talent, and Jim was doing Across the Universe and the other Berlin Girl for Sony. And then the thing was, we weren't concerned about race because it's not a docudrama. And in real life, Jeff didn't have an affair with Jill, and we changed quite a bit from the book, and the book was not actually accurate either. And then in real,
what do you mean the book wasn't accurate?
It took some liberties as well. It's not a documentary. And then in reality, Jeff Ma, who is the Jim Sturgis character in this, has stated himself that the real team was 20 to 30% Asian, and the rest was diverse, from white, black, whatever else you have.
But actually, speaking to that as well, it's really, I'm not surprised by the upset over it. But at the same time, when I first went to Boston, I sat down with Jeff and I sat down with a couple of the other players, Matt Lau and a few of the other guys. They would sit around and kind of fantasize, wouldn't it be great if so-and-so played me? And it was, they were like, oh, what if Tobey Maguire played me? And what if, you got Leonardo DiCaprio to play my part? And And so I thought that was really interesting. They didn't have
Jeff
that expectation.
Actually, I think he wanted Matt Damon to play him.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they didn't have that expectation in the first place. So I think that it's interesting. I mean, I understand it and I appreciate it, but the actual people who this is about didn't even think that for 1 second.
One or more tough questions. These geniuses, right? This MIT kid just got to ask a tough, kooky question. He doesn't get a safety deposit box. He puts it all in the ceiling. $300,000. I'm an idiot.
That's a question that's been posed to Jeff a lot on these Q&As that we've done, and he really did do stupid stuff like that. He goes, you know what? He's never said that. He wasn't dumb or whatever. I forgot what he said, but anyways, he said he actually would hide it under soap in like a drawer. And in the book, I think it was, or Ben or somebody told me that they actually put it in the bottom. One of the guys put it in the bottom of a laundry bag, and they hid it in there. So they didn't. And Jeff also explained it as when you're taking off to go to Vegas and to go and get $250,000 out of the bank or $100,000, however much you take into Vegas with you, that slows you down. You have to go to the bank, go do the whole thing, stuff it in your pants, carry it out that way. And
what's a safety deposit box?
Google it. All right, another one. We're going to get into a spoiler here about the ending, then we're going to turn it over to the crowd. I like him. I like having him making the mistake and then Mickey turning them in. When they're kind of getting ready to go back out. That was interesting. And then I was almost half expecting him to record the conversation with Spacey at the alumni dinner. Very glad that he didn't, by the way. So I definitely commend that. And please tell me the second when I'm done, like if there was a version where he recorded.
There was a version.
Okay. I was curious, because it becomes very upbeat and crowd pleasing, which is fine. People are going to the movies for escapist entertainment. But what were the different variants of the endings? Because it gets really twisty, and you talked earlier about 2 different endings. So screenwriters and Brunetti, hop on in.
This was the least twisty of the endings we did. We were in Vegas pretty much like 2 days before production, right? Or 3 days before production.
Yeah, we were holed up in a hotel room, and really we came in, we thought it was going to be all right, do a read-through and go. And then...
The read-through. I mean, can I just tell this real quickly?
Go.
And then we'll get really quickly. We did the read-through, and for whatever reason, I think Jim was a little nervous, and he kind of read quietly, and he didn't act, which some actors don't do in the read-throughs, and for whatever reason, the read-through went disastrously. I mean, it was just a disaster. And so we ended up in a suite up at the Planet Hollywood with you and a bunch of Sony people and Kevin Spacey and Robert Luketic and Michael Luca. And everybody's just going off. And the movie's being completely unwound. And we have 5 days before production or 6 days before production. And everything's up for everything's going out the window.
True or false, Dana was crying in a corner.
I thought Allan it's a good thing the windows didn't open because I felt so bad for him. It was like a pit of
It
vipers.
was unbelievable. Here's the thing. At the end of it, it was a clusterfuck like I've never seen. And we had 5 days before production, and I thought Amy Pascal was going to pull the plug on the movie.
Oh, I totally thought the movie was done.
And Kevin Spacey came up to me and he said, "This is a clusterfuck. You're getting yelled at by 10 people, 10 different things. Fuck them all. Meet me tomorrow for breakfast, and we're going to figure this out." And so we went to the Bellagio. It was me and you and Kevin. Was Rob? It was just us. Maybe
just
Rob.
Us 3 because he didn't want.
It was us 3, and I was up the whole night redesigning the whole movie. I redesigned the whole movie, re-outlined it. We had worked for you between this is 4 years of development being thrown out the window in one night, and I pitched it to Kevin, and he liked it, and he called up Amy Pascal. I'll never forget this, and he said, "Allan's pitched me what he's going to do. I like it. Nobody from the studio is permitted to call him at all, and he's going to finish it in a few days." And then and I'll never forget this because it was the swimming of sharks, Kevin. He hung up the phone, he looked at me, and he goes, "Now go fucking right." And I did for 5 straight days. It was nonstop.
So what was the other ending that you were talking about?
The other ending was...
Briefly.
Kevin Spacey was in it with...
It turned out that Cole and Spacey were in it. Cole and Mickey Rose. It made sense. We're going to have this battle again. They were in it together, so it was a double mind fuck at the end, and then they then fuck the kids over until the new team comes in, and they just keep doing the same system over and over.
Just a question about the current ending. He says he's going to call the IRS. Fishburne kind of indicates he's going to call the IRS. I would think once the IRS gets involved, that would kind of blow it for all the students that were on the team, and it really wouldn't make their situation any better. There's a lot of math to be done by the audience in the end. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's satisfying. People are leaving with a smile. They clapped here at the screening. But, like, how did that unravel? What was Fishburne going to do to him that could get Ben reinstated at MIT and into Harvard without getting them all kicked out of school or put in jail?
In my mind, it was the IRS was what he was going to hold over Mickey.
So he's going to hold it over until Mickey made good on everybody else.
Until Mickey made,
Get
in
his
my
grades
mind.
back and
Was there ever a version where the kids were going to get away with any of their winnings?
Oh yeah,
we went back and forth a lot.
yeah.
on that.
I mean, that was actually a big part of it. In fact, we always had that.
Because the book says how they stole millions from the casino.
Right, but we always had that version too of, like, one of the ideas I remember Dana and I talking about a long time ago was just that moment that you see at the end of the movie where, like, you know, Kate Bosworth and Jim Sturgis are walking through the casino, and suddenly you see Miles and you see, you know, their friends who actually have been sitting at the table doing their card counting, and, you know, and that while all of the focus was on Mickey and all the focus was on Kate's character and Ben, Ben was smart enough to actually set up all of his friends around the casino card counting the whole night, and they're the ones who were really taking as much as they could. So there was a little bit of that left.
Yeah, we played that a little bit in the end, but the other idea was that while the distraction was going on, knowing that Cole was paying attention, focusing totally on Mickey and getting Mickey, that he wouldn't be watching the rest of the casino, so therefore they could go outside of the normal system and just have big players everywhere rather than just spotters.
That's cool. That's cool. We're going to open up to the crowd for a few questions. Right there, you, sir, on the aisle. Question was in regard to, at the beginning, there's a kid being beat up in the casino. He's Asian. He's curious if it was, I forgot the rest of his question, but something about some other movie.
That's... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, in terms of the early scene?
Yeah. In the beginning opener.
You want to? Because I know in my mind where that came from, but...
No, go ahead.
I was in Vancouver, and Robert Luketic called me and said, we might be able to get Jack Nicholson, but we have to introduce the character earlier in the movie. Can you do a flash into scene? So that's where...
And then that almost got moved out, too, because some thought it was too violent too early on.
I was curious
and we needed
when
to show that it was actually dangerous what they were doing. It could be dangerous.
Which is great right at the beginning, but it seemed like almost when they say Jimmy left the team to go join Google, I was wondering if the kid being beat up in the beginning was the actual Jimmy.
No? He was just some random
guy? Okay. Another question. What was Fisher threatened with was the question when Fisher left the team.
Well, basically like what he did to Ben. He took his grades and he could flunk him out of school and basically fuck up his career and his education.
Another question. Right there, you ma'am in the hat. Good question. Did MIT ever have any issue with
we didn't
kind of
film
corrupt
at MIT.
teacher?
We filmed at Boston University and filmed outside on the street of MIT.
Outside on the street of MIT.
And aerial helicopter shots that they had no control over.
Did you ever try to film at MIT?
Yes.
And they rejected you? Clearly. All right. Good. Right there, you man, front row. Was Ben really beaten up is the question.
Yeah, I mean, in the book, he's actually roughed up a little bit, and you know, there are scenes where it's really, in the book, he's really much more threatened, but he does experience a little bit of.
He never got physically pummeled by Morpheus, but he.
Do you feel like that was necessary? I had a problem with that because of the violence.
Well, if some of the teams and some of the guys on the teams did get roughed up, and in the book, I think it was in the bathroom in the Bahamas or someplace.
Oh yeah, well, there's one of the real guys that was actually, well, it's not his real name, but in the book, his name was Martinez, and he was just sort of beaten beyond recognition by the real life Cole, and so you know, we just felt like that's a real aspect of what they're doing, and you know, there are some scary consequences. It is Vegas, so you know that's why it's not back in.
That's not necessarily the Disney-fied Vegas that we have now. It's more of old school Vegas, and I think you would face that more if you were overseas or in like some of the you know, casinos that aren't so corporate like Vegas is. But they also Jeff did when he was in, I think, Shreveport or in Louisiana, one of the casinos down there, where they ran the team off. Basically, the police came out. They had shotguns coming out and basically just intimidate them to take off.
That's right.
But we did intentionally paint the Cole Williams character to be a throwback of old Vegas and old school. And in those days, they did a lot more. Now in corporate Vegas, it's not as common. But he's the kind of guy that used to do that 20 years ago.
Right. Another question from the crowd right there, you ma'am in the red. Did he become a doctor?
No, he actually runs a sports betting, online betting. Really? Something like a sports bracket thing.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's in the movie as well.
Yeah, the real
He plays-
Jeff is
when he-
actually
when he
a
sits
dealer
down
in
and
the-
goes, "Hey, Jeffrey, my brother from another mother." That's
The Rain Man
that's
scene.
homage to him, and that's
But
He played the dealer in that scene.
But it's interesting about that scene, their whole thing is to keep low profile, and it gets to a certain point in the movie where people know their names, they know their false identities at least.
Well, that
they're
scene is
certainly not
when
staying low-key.
Well, that scene when he comes over, that's totally what he's doing. He's breaking protocol. That's why they're freaking out. Of
Okay.
what the fuck's he doing? He's breaking protocol. And he comes and sits down at his table. You have two big players at the same table, and as
But even before he sat down, he was talking to him like, hey,
But,
my man.
you know, part of that
are you
actually
back in
is
town on business was the line of dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, they actually did have their different identities per different casino, so they were known.
oh, you mean
as
the
different
dealer
names.
Yeah.
to? Oh, I thought you meant the team
bad-
players.
Yeah.
yeah. No, they definitely know him. I mean, when he walks into the Red Rock Casino and he's greeted by
Yeah.
the host, and these
Is
guys
that
really
against
did.
their keeping
No,
low
these
profile?
guys actually. That's how they got comp suites. They were known
Yeah.
under these different aliases that they had.
All right, good. One or two last questions, then we got to get out of here. You're waving your hand. I hope it's a good one. More of the differences between the book and the movie.
Yeah, there's one or two differences between the book and the movie. There's, really, like Alan and I were saying before, it's a tough adaptation just because what they do is so amazing. And also, at the same time, you're dealing with a national bestseller that's just a really well-loved book. And so, but at the same time, in breaking down the book, you're looking at certain moments and saying, okay, is this cinematic or is that not cinematic? Like, for instance, having the story take place over the course of several years. And you go, you know what, this just doesn't help us in terms of the timeline for how we want to tell the story. So there are differences like that. And then other differences, like the book never really gets involved with any of Ben Campbell's friends at MIT who are not involved in, on the blackjack team. And so just kind of creating a cinematic life for this guy and creating a journey that you can really watch. What the book is really amazing at and really wonderful at is just capturing the wish fulfillment that these guys got to be involved in and just the wild ride they got to go on. But in terms of character arcs, like one of the things, you don't really know in the book why Jeff Ma got involved with this in the first place. And that was the very first thing I said to him is like, why? Like, you don't need to do this. You have guys at MIT who in their senior thesis are, coming up with something that's so brilliant in terms of sound conductivity, and they're selling it to Bose for $200 million. Like, why do you need to do this? Like, what was the financial situation in your family that was going on that forced you every weekend to go to Las Vegas? And it really wasn't. For him, it was just sort of like, he said, you know what? And the real answer that Jeff gave me is, I dig math. I dig math, and it was just cool. And it was cool, and I never got invited to the party, and so I went to the party.
And that was the whole thing. These guys got to live a dual life. And then to talk about one of the differences, back to your question for a second, part of that dual life, we would go to they were, MIT, they were math nerds and buttoned up. They'd go to Vegas and live like rock stars. And Jeff actually was dating I think it was an LA Rams cheerleader. While he was doing this. So, I mean, that's, being from Boston and going to Vegas and meeting your LA Rams cheerleader, he totally had a different life. We didn't have that in the movie. And I don't know, there's...
I think it's great for...
the med school, stuff
by the
right
time-
there.
And also, the other thing, it was all in Vegas, the movie, where in the book they went all over the place. They hit the Mohegan Sun, they hit Louisiana riverboats, and Chicago. They went all over.
Yeah, I mean, at some point when you're developing and when you're going through the process, you don't think about the fact that there's a book. You've got to make a movie. And it's whether it could, for when I was involved and when I was moving forward with it, it could have been a spec script Peter sold and not based on any true story as far as I cared.
You didn't read the book initially, right?
Yeah, no, when I first...
He went off the script initially, and then when did you read the book?
Pretty much near the end, before Vegas, but before the read-through.
And then you made up scientific terms, which I love. All right, no, just really quick, because the theater's going to kill me. What are you guys doing next? What's going on next? Dana, this could be an hour discussion about what's going on with Fanboys. Does it even have a release date? Trigger Seat produced it. Yes, no?
No release date yet.
Fantastic. What are you doing next?
I just started taking guitar lessons. So... Cool. I've always wanted to learn how to play, so... Because actors get all the fun stuff. They get to learn how to do all these things. They get to go to Vegas and count cards. And the writers are like the poor schnooks who are home, like Googling how to count cards. And so I thought I always want to learn how to play guitar, so I'm doing that.
What about a screenplay?
The air guitar?
Oh,
or
that. No, I'm writing a movie for Universal right now, and so
What's it called?
It's, believe it or not, it's a remake of a 1977 Paul Newman movie called Slapshot, and I know, you're going to be bummed, but it's great. It's great. No, you're going to love it. I'm serious. I know you're horrified. Just think Mighty Ducks. That's it. Honestly, no, I'm just kidding. It's great. It's going to be amazing.
All right, I don't want to get you over with the theater manager. Alan, what is your next project?
I'm working on something for United Artists and Sony right now.
What is it? Title?
It's called Out of This World for United Artists, Toyman for Sony.
What's the pitch on Out of This World?
Out of This World is a big E.T. type of family movie. Toyman is a Vince Vaughn movie for Sony, which is kind of a bit more of a dramedy.
You guys have been very generous with your time. I can't wait to see what you do next. Give it up again for Dana Brunetti, Peter Steinfeld, and Allan Loeb.
And that's how the Q&A went down. Special thanks to producer Dana Brunetti and co-writers Peter Steinfeld and Allan Loeb for coming down to chat with us about their new film, 21. If you dug this episode of the podcast in general, consider tossing a virtual tip into our PayPal virtual tip jar by visiting www.creativescreenwritingmagazine.blogspot.com and look for the PayPal icon. Your tips are appreciated and definitely help out with equipment, hard drives, and all the other stuff we need to keep this podcast running. Of course, feel free to check out my blog, which I even managed to update on the rare occasion that I have time to do so by visiting www.jeffgoldsmith.blogspot.com. You can also always feel free to drop me a line by emailing me at yo.goldsmith@gmail.com, and I'll do my darndest to get back to you as soon as I can. Of course, don't forget to click that subscribe button in iTunes or your podcatching software, because that's how episodes are downloaded automatically every time you click refresh. And if you have a minute, feel free to leave us positive feedback in the iTunes Music Store or at podcastalley.com. I'm Jeff Goldsmith, Senior Editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, thanking you again for tuning in and telling you to stay out of trouble. Till next week.